This is how to reclaim your self-esteem after trauma and abuse. So let's get into it. One of the things that's most lost through trauma and abuse is a sense of self. We develop the survival self, the self we have to be in those situations in order to survive a traumatic or abusive situation. But having to endure that over a period of time cloaks who we truly are. And in the depths of our true selves is all the power that we have lost from having to be in survival mode and losing touch with the powerful self and defaulting to the false self, the survival self. We often lose our self-esteem. We begin to live the voices and the lies that trauma has taught us. We lose touch and complete sight of the person that God created us to be. And in losing that, we lose how we should feel about our powerful selves. Cloaked within the survival self is a sense of shame, guilt, false responsibility, all of the lies and negative lies that we came to believe about ourselves, the lies that maybe abusive others kept telling us, especially if the trauma happened when you were young. So we have to reclaim ourselves, our true selves. But in doing so, we're going to have to battle the survival self. So what I'm going to share with you today are 5 ways to reclaim your self-esteem. First, let's define what self-esteem really is. To clarify that, self-esteem is the degree of confidence we have in our own worth or our own abilities. It involves self-respect. Do we respect ourselves? Now, one of the ways that I see that trauma causes us to lose this is when we get caught in the shame from trauma or abuse. And that shame will shut down our voices. We talk often about reclaiming our voices after trauma and abuse. But when we get into shame and guilt to the point where we can't forgive ourselves, then we are getting into self-esteem territory. I talked in an earlier video from a couple of weeks ago about how a deep discussion with my daughter helped me to realize I didn't specifically call it the inability to forgive myself, but what it was I realized that there were things that I wouldn't allow my heart to desire because I didn't think I deserved it. And that's all tied to the guilt and the shame that I have carried for years for being separated from my children. Now, from their perspective, it's nothing like as deep as what I keep telling myself it is on my part, because I was having, let me be positive about this because I'm working on it now. I was having trouble forgiving myself for how my life decisions affected their lives. Now, at this point, their lives are fine. God has redeemed all that, and their lives are great. Their children are thriving. They have great relationships with their kids. It's all good. But I'm still stuck at 1979 when I was running for my life from a domestic violence situation and wound up separated from them because my ex wanted to use them as a pawn to control me. Now, one of the things that I've had to suffer with as far as not forgiving myself, is the fact that I have this "you made your bed, so lie in it" type of mentality, that there had to be something you did, Linda, that put you in the position for this. And so you have to pay those consequences and quit crying about it. There's also behind that this determination I have not to make excuses for myself, not to make excuses for what went on. Yes, I do understand now that certain choices that were made on the parts of others that led me into my survival mode have to be theirs to own. I have come to a point where I quit taking responsibility for what they did to me. Major bed lie in it type of mentality would say that, hey, you deserve what they gave you, so you're partly responsible for what they gave you. It's all twisted up. I'll admit that. But in that, when you add that thing about not wanting to make excuses for myself and wanting to own my own responsibility and stuff, then that even gets twisted, as long as I won't just understand that certain things were out of my control and I did the best I could at the time. So I'm wrestling with that. Now, along with that comes the self-esteem thing that would play out in relationships. Like you become what they call a pick-me, where you're just doing everything and bending over backwards to be and do everything you think a person would want from you in order for them to choose you. Then add on that the fear of rejection, and you got a holy mess, a conglomeration of twisted mess that just has you all twisted out on levels. And so that is all part of the self-esteem thing. Whether that self-esteem is deteriorated because you won't forgive yourself, whether it's deteriorated because you're taking on the shame that the perpetrator should be bearing, whether it's a thing that you're feeling guilty about some of the decisions you made and maybe how you treated somebody else, it all kind of intermingles with how you feel about yourself and whether or not you respect yourself. You're capable of being open and honest and forgiving with other people and giving them second chances, being understanding, all of that. But when it comes to yourself, then you can't do that. That all plays into the self-esteem thing. And so as long as we are viewing ourselves as less than, then it doesn't matter how much other people see the true you or see your potential or see what you bring to the table. As long as they're seeing that, that's all good and fine. But nothing they say will ever convince you that you're all of that. And that's why we need to work on our self-esteem. There are 5 core aspects of your self-esteem. A sense of security that would have you say, I know I'm safe. Identity. I know who I am. A sense of belonging. I know what others expect of me. A sense of purpose. I know what I want to achieve. And a sense of competence. I know I am capable. Security, identity, belonging, purpose, and competence. All are 5 core aspects of your self-esteem. But before we talk about how to go about reclaiming it, I want to talk to you about what it looks like not to have healthy self-esteem. You may believe that others are better than you. You may find expressing your needs very difficult. You may focus on your weaknesses, challenges that I've been having, always blaming myself. You know, instead of saying, okay, you might have to do this a different way, I'm calling it a mistake or I did it wrong. And those kind of ways that I'm looking at myself really affect how well I do accomplish the goals that I have. Give an example. I've been going to speech therapy. I appreciate you guys putting up with me as I regain my vocal abilities. And I was talking to my girlfriend, Audria Firestone. She's a famous international opera singer, about what they saw when they scoped me after my thyroid surgery and some of the vocal exercises I'm having to do. And I kept telling her, yeah, and then I realized I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing that wrong. I'm doing that wrong. And she kind of pulled me up. Wait a minute, Lynn. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's just that you need to do this a different way. Don't keep saying that you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Now, a simple thing like that struck me because of the serious conversation I had with my daughter. I'll put that at the end on the end screen so you can click through to see that video. I'm always looking at myself in a less than position from a less than perspective, and always looking at myself and being so hard on myself that I couldn't see the difference between I'm wrong and I need to do it a different way. You may frequently experience fear, self-doubt, and worry. You may have a negative outlook on life and feel a lack of control. You may have an intense fear of failure. You may have trouble accepting positive feedback. How many years did I go where I could not accept a compliment? I'm going to be self-deprecating in my response or some way. I'm just now learning how to just say thank you very much. So that all plays into the fact that you can't accept positive feedback. It gets to what I told you. How you see yourself is what's ruling your life. Even though others see something different, they might be seeing the true you, your full capabilities and all of that, but nothing they say is getting through to you because you're thinking of yourself in a negative light because of the trauma. May have trouble saying no and setting boundaries. Saying no and setting boundaries. We just need to sit on that for a while. Hey, while you're here, please take time to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now back to the episode. How you see yourself, your self-esteem is probably unhealthy because you cannot say no and set boundaries. And that doesn't even say, it's just setting the boundaries, okay? Having enough self-esteem to enforce those boundaries is a completely different thing altogether. You may put other people's needs above your own. I know I ain't the only one sitting over here that can relate to that. And you may struggle with confidence. Confidence. This is what I want to bring out here. I want to bring this out in a professional setting. You can be rocking the boardroom. You can be award after award on your job. You can be somebody that can even sit at a negotiating table and hold your ground and hold your own. But then when in your personal life, toe up from the flow up. So you can have confidence in certain arenas, but then when it comes down to your personal life, all of this other junk is going on. So let's not focus in as we go through these things on the part of our lives where we got everybody fooled, everything cool, and you're rocking it. Okay, let's talk about that back door that needs to open up so that you can deal with the self-esteem issues that are playing out in your personal life. So don't let your professional life fool you. Now, we're going to, in a minute, I'm going to tell you the 5 things to do, but this is the reason you're doing that, because you want to develop a healthy self-esteem, which means that you can avoid dwelling on the past negative experiences, dwelling on them. Understand me here. There's a difference between denial and detachment from a past trauma and just not dwelling on it. You are not dwelling on it by totally ignoring and denying that it existed, or totally ignoring and denying how that's affecting your current life. I'm not talking about dissociating from it. You know you went through it. You're owning that you went through it. You're owning how it's affecting you now, but you're not allowing yourself to just sit up and dwell on that negativity. Don't just sit and dwell and sit in the cesspool of the pain that trauma has caused you. But also don't go to the other end where you act like it never happened. A healthy self-esteem acknowledges that it happens, acknowledges its effects in your current life, but you're not allowing yourself to dwell on that. It's getting stuck on the negativity of that. If you have a healthy self-esteem, you believe you are equal to everyone else, no better and no worse, just even Steven. Nobody's better than you are. You're not better than anybody else, okay? You learn and know how to express your needs when you have a healthy self-esteem. You feel confident in who you are. You have a positive outlook on life. You say no when you want to. Say it again. You say no when you want to. So that means we don't have any please me's up in here, okay? Or people pleasing in here. And you see your overall strengths and weaknesses and accept them. Healthy self-esteem doesn't mean that you don't have weaknesses. You're still a human being, but you also have strengths. You're a human being created by God. So what you want to do is you want to acknowledge your overall strengths. You don't want to allow that to stay buried under trauma's repercussions. But you also acknowledge that you have weaknesses, and it's okay to have those weaknesses. And you're acknowledging those weaknesses doesn't mean that you allow your whole sense of self to be undermined by those weaknesses. Everybody's got weaknesses and strengths. So you're no better or no worse than anybody else. That's a healthy sense of self-esteem. Now, how do we go about reclaiming that? And I want you to know that I'm using the word reclaiming because it's something that trauma has stolen from us. And just like we have to reclaim and regain our voices after trauma, we also have to reclaim this sense of self-esteem. Here are 5 things to do to regain your self-esteem after trauma. 1, acknowledge and therefore validate your emotion. That means no more stuff in the feelings that the trauma caused you to deny. The feelings that you had to deny in order to survive the trauma or abuse. You have to learn how to, okay, I'm feeling such and such a way right now. Acknowledge that that's how you're feeling. Because what's happened is generally if you've been traumatized, especially in childhood, okay, then you were never validated. You were never acknowledged. You might not have actually been seen by the adults in your life. And so you learned to invalidate yourself because you're reflecting back what was reflected to you. So you have to acknowledge your feelings and self-validate that you're having them without shame. Without shame. Number 2, build your tribe. You need a safe place to talk honestly about your challenges, your goals, and your growth. And this process of reclaiming your self-esteem, you have got to have a safe place for that. And your tribe is that, because this is somebody or somebodies who know how to hear you and see you without judgment. Okay? But at the same time, they will know when to challenge your mindsets and hold you accountable to the changes that you yourself have decided to make. So in other words, when we're caught up in this negativity from trauma, even if it's just a trigger, then we need help from the outside to draw us back into an objective view of whatever event triggered us. So you need this safe place where you know that you're safe to just let it out. And you know that these people care about you and you can trust their advice. Number 3, self-compassion. I just talked about that. Be mindful of negative thoughts. They're going to come, but be mindful when they do. Recognize them and acknowledge them for what they are. Challenge self-critical thoughts and replace those thoughts with empowering statements. This is the deal, y'all. A thought is going to be empowering or disempowering. These are your choices. Your actions based on those thoughts will be empowering or disempowering. It is not enough to keep having the negative thoughts come in and you're just saying, I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to ignore you. You have to replace it with something positive so that you can start leaning into that positive, which is more truth. And let me put it like this. You need to replace it with truth because the negative thoughts are lying to you. And you need to replace that negativity, that lie, with the truth. And so if you come in and the negative thought comes and says, nobody likes me, or you walk into a room, everybody's looking at me negatively, what you're going to replace that with is, I can't tell what people thinking. I am not a mind reader, and all this mess is in my head and my head alone. There's the truth for you. So this goes even further than just the positive affirmations that you might say to yourself every day. Because you can say affirmations until the cows come home. It is never going to make any difference in your life until you start believing the truth behind those affirmations. 4, emphasize strengths and resilience. Emphasize strengths and resilience. Don't believe the lie that you aren't fully capable of thriving after all you've endured. See, we minimize all that. We've done what we needed to get through the trauma and everything. And because we lived that, we tend to minimize what we've been through because we survived it. And we had to go there in our heads, well, okay, this is not going to take me out. I'm going to have to do this, and they go here, do that, think this, do that to get through it. But then the farther we get from that trauma, even though it seriously affected us in our current life, we got to minimize what we went through. It ain't as bad as so-and-so went through, as bad as that one went through. No, own the power of the fact that you are a survivor. Own the power of that. And out of that, understand that if you come through that, you're totally capable of reclaiming your self-esteem. So you just want to know, remember what you've been through, remember what you've endured, don't minimize that, and understand that that means you are fully capable of thriving after what you survived. And number 5, seek professional support. The healing process is complex, and you will benefit from a trauma-trained professional. I'll put a video at the end of this to show you how to determine and to obtain a trauma-trained professional, what kind of questions you need to ask them, etc. But you need to accept that you're going to need professional help to come through this and to regain your self-esteem. Anyway, I hope that these 5 powerful steps to reclaiming your self-esteem were helpful to you today. Always remember your greatest power is realized in the truth of who you are. And when you reclaim your self-esteem, you'll step into that truth. Wait, before you go, click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share the episode. Thanks.